Good morning to all of you. Mr. Keshav, thank you so much for the introduction. I'm very happy to be here with you this morning. From where I am, it's now 3 minutes past midnight. So when I say good morning to you, my morning has literally just started 3 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Let me start off by saying everybody's seeing this PowerPoint, right?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Now the point is, I want to start off by saying the title is "Make a Difference," and I'm saying that this is something that you might like to think of as a overall overarching goal for yourselves going forward. I want to start with something that I remind myself about, that in the end I want to know that I stood for what I believed in. And that's how I like to think of my way of leading my own life. Now let's quickly do an environmental scan of the world going forward as I see it, and that's why I'm calling it Welcome to Your World, because this is more your world than mine. And in this context, I want to focus only on one thing. There are so many things which are new, which are different, but let's stick to one, and that is the effect of AI, artificial intelligence. A comparative time period would be the Industrial Revolution, 1760 to 1840. And if you read about that, the kind of disruption that it caused in Europe and in America. In India, we didn't see that. But in Europe and America, the kind of disruption it caused, it's absolutely mind-boggling, because it literally almost one complete generation got wiped out as a consequence of the Industrial Revolution. Now, it's not the scope of my talk today to talk to you in detail about the specific changes that the Industrial Revolution wrought in the lives of people. One of them, in passing, I must say, is the entire schooling system that we have today. That is a product of the Industrial Revolution. So good or bad, there were no schools the way that we know them before the Industrial Revolution. Now, to come to this revolution, which is that of artificial intelligence, we have, you can see from the things which I have picked, you have got things which are almost diametrically opposite. On the one hand, you might have a cancer cure. I think that's one of the very good things to look forward to, that finally we will have a cancer cure. On the other hand, you have what is called designer babies. Genetic engineering to create all kinds of things that do not exist. And those kinds of things would be the things that those genetic engineers want to create. One interesting thing that will happen, and it's happening to some extent already, is mind reading. Quite literally, what that means is that if you're sitting in an interview and the interviewer asks you a question, you will be probably wearing the equivalent of a sensor band around your wrist or something like that, or some other input device. And when the interviewer asks you a question, when you answer, the interviewer will actually be able to see your thoughts and your feelings on his or her screen. So whether you are speaking the truth or not, or whether, rather, to put it another way, whether your words are in sync with your thoughts, the interviewer will actually be able to see that. Whether you like that or not is something for you to think about, but I don't think that really matters, because this is going to happen. What are the other aspects of the effects of artificial intelligence? One of them is, of course, control. Control of people, control of populations, control of resources. And of course, why do you control? You control for the possibility of exploitation to your advantage. And the extreme form of control is, of course, enslavement. The question to ask yourself is, who will this ultimately benefit? This kind of control and so on, who are the ultimate beneficiaries? Because it's not about, it's a question of technology, it's a question of technology which gives power. Because technology gives power, but technology does not give values. I mean, this is a very important thing to keep in mind. And the reason I'm saying that is because when you have genetic engineering, whether you will use it to create a cancer cure or similar cures for illnesses and so on, to solve the problems of the human race and the world, or whether you will use that in order to enslave people, technology enables both. Technology is value neutral. It's like nuclear technology, for example. Whether to make a nuclear power plant or to make a nuclear bomb, the technology does not decide that. That is decided by a human being somewhere. And how that human being operates, what is the frame of reference, what is the decision-making process of the human being, depends on what values that human being has. And that is why my point of which I'm making to you is, think about that and say what kind of things that you need to learn going forward. Some other effects of AI, very simple things which I'm sure you have heard of and seen many times. Is massive automation. I mean, automation on an unprecedented scale. So manufacturing almost entirely by robots. And you know that a lot of this is already in place. If you go into, for example, in the auto industry, if you go into a Mercedes factory, or if you go into Tesla and so on and so forth, if you see how Tesla batteries are changed, it's an amazing thing to see. So there is massive automation. Self-driving trucks and cars. Now, before I go to the next point, let me just ask you this question. I'm sure many of you have heard this, heard talk about this, which is massive automation, self-driving trucks, cars, whatnot. People would also have been take self-driving trucks, for example. People would have told you that this will reduce the turnaround time. It will take goods from point A to point B much faster. It will reduce the amount of accidents on the road, and so on and so forth. But did anyone ever talk to you about what happens to people who are currently truck drivers? I'm going to come to that in a little more detail. I just want to put this thought in your mind. Who talks about the people involved? Similarly, self-learning. Whether I should say sorry to say or not, I don't know, but literally teachers are going to be out of jobs. There will be no jobs for teachers. Now you might say, well, that's an extreme statement, so let me qualify that and say there will be no job for teachers doing what they do today. For example, for a professor to go and give a lecture will not exist anymore. There is no need. Even today there is no need, but we still do it. But the point is that this is something that's going to happen. Self-learning, which is a lot of what you're doing today. You're sitting in your homes. I'm sitting 10,000 miles away in the United States, and we're having a chat. There's no one else involved. IBM Watson, I'm sure many of you have heard of that. It's a IBM app which does, for example, IBM Watson, the medical version of it, detects cancer, they say 10 times, 11 times faster and more accurately than a human doctor. IBM Watson, the legal version of that, does practically all the solicitor work in an attorney's office. So all kinds of DB searches, database researches, comparing to cases, precedences, whatnot, short of actually arguing a case in the court for which still a human attorney is required. All the attorney's office work, IBM Watson, the legal version of that, is capable of doing. Siri or the Android version of Siri. I'm sure all of us use it. All of us use it, and we use it a lot, and it's extremely convenient for us. Now, before we go to the security aspect of it, what am I talking about here? I'm talking about loss of jobs for teachers in their current incarnation, if I can use the word. I'm talking about loss of jobs for doctors, general practitioners, physicians, because of telemedicine and IBM Watson kind of products working instead of that. I'm talking about loss of jobs for lawyers, especially at the lower levels, attorneys' offices, so on and so forth. What do you think is going to happen to MBA students? Give that some thought. Then invasive security. We're seeing this happening in the context of COVID. In country after country, we have the law literally compels you to register yourself via your mobile phone, and then you are monitored. All your movements are monitored, where you are going, what time, this, that. The reason is because we want to limit the spread of, in this particular case, COVID-19. So we need to know if you are safe, if you are not safe, if you are an active or COVID positive person, then we want to make sure that you are staying quarantined, and so on and so forth. So there is a, within quotes, good reason. Ask yourself a simple question, which is, what happens when a COVID cure has been found, which will happen, we are hoping pretty soon. What will happen to all the security and surveillance systems which are already in place? Will they be dismantled? Will they say, fine, right now, therefore now we don't need to know anything about you, so you are free to live your life as you wish? Is that going to happen? I won't tell you what I think, but I want you to give it some thought yourself. Then we are looking now, I mentioned to you the issue of truck drivers. Just let me give you that as one simple example. In the US alone, there are 3.5 million truck drivers. And these are figures from the Trucking Association of America. So 3.5 million truck drivers. I'm talking about the big 16-wheelers, semi-articulated trucks. The trucking industry itself employs 8 million people. Multiply that by 5, which is the average American family size, you've got 40 million people. The population of the United States is 350 million people. So 40 million people is 10% of the population. Self-driving trucks, if it is completely implemented in the whole of the United States, which will mean that 10% of the population will be out of circulation, which means that 3.5 million truck drivers plus the others, so 8 million people out of work, multiplied that by 5, which is their families, will all be affected because of self-driving trucks, thanks to artificial intelligence, and not affected positively but affected negatively, because they are going to be losing their livelihood. Right now, truck drivers make anything from about 45,000 to 60,000, sometimes 70, 80,000, depending on how much they drive per annum. That is US dollars. That pays for, just to give you 3 things, that pays for their housing. So if they are paying any mortgages and so on and so forth, or house rental, it pays for their children's education, and it pays for their health care, which is not free in the US, it's very expensive, so this pays for that. No job means all of these 3 are gone. No house, no education, no health care. Now what happens? Loss of livelihood also means less discretionary spending, which means less commercial activity. Job loss is also in other ways, not only in terms of of self-driving trucks. For example, right now we are seeing 2 things which are already operating. One is Amazon Prime, which Amazon has completely outsourced. So you have the drivers who come with the Amazon trucks, the trucks belong to the drivers, or they are rented by somebody. Amazon as a company does not pay for that. So this makes a huge saving for Amazon in terms of its own salaries, but what does it mean in terms of the earning capacity of those people? Then, of course, you have drone deliveries, which is somebody's out of a job. This will create more enhanced wealth disparity as well as more poverty. The point is, at the end of all that, my question to all of you is to think about this and say, what are the implications of this in terms of global security, in terms of mobility? Will you be able to travel freely across the world, and in terms of opportunity? Because when we are saying job losses, you're also saying fewer new jobs. Now, the standard answer that most of you will probably get when you ask about this question is, people will say, oh no, but that's, it's very simple, because we can always retrain the people. Think about a truck driver in his late 40s, early 50s. He still has 15, 20 years of good service to go. He's done 10 to 15 years of service. He is driving a very sophisticated machine. I don't know if any of you have been inside a 16-wheeler cab. It's a fabulous thing. My dream car is a 16-wheeler. It's a very complex machine. He is very good at that. He makes good money doing that work, but he is so super specialized that if that goes and he has no job as a truck driver, he is almost incapable of doing anything else. Now, take a person of that level, and a lot of them in the US anyway, a lot of them are also probably school dropouts or people like that who do not have a, within quotes, great theoretical education. They can do this job, they can do it well, it serves them well, but also it means that there is almost nothing else they can do. What do you do with that person? Retrain is an easy word to use for analysts, business analysts like myself and what you will probably become. But the point is that what does that translate to in real life? You will retrain this truck driver to be what? Now multiply that, for example, with self-driving cars. So we are now talking about millions of taxi drivers. You're talking about companies like Uber in their current incarnation will be finished. Because there will be no need for Uber drivers. So now Uber is a big thing because it's been a means of livelihood for a lot of people. That will go. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. The reason I'm saying is that whenever we talk about technology, it leaves out a very big piece. And that piece is the people. It leaves out the people. I mean, I've heard technology talks after technology talks throughout. The most recent one I heard was by the historian, philosopher Noah Harari, which is very, very interesting. I listened to that with great interest. But again, the same issue, which is no mention of the people. It's very funny because it seems as if all of these people believe that the world exists on its own and that technology will exist on its own. Well, good news or bad news, it doesn't. People do exist. So what are the implications, for example, of massive job losses? What are the implications of change of work style? Just think about this. This lecture normally would have happened in your college. I would have been standing on the stage in front of you and all of you would have been sitting in front of me. But today, I am 10,000 miles away. You are in completely a different time zone. You are 9.5 hours ahead of me in a different time zone. Just now we are in the same day, physically speaking, but until about half an hour ago, you were in my future because you were in Thursday and I was still in Wednesday. So I could have looked at you and say, well, the future looks nice because here is a bunch of young people with aspirations for the future. So that's where we are. So the complete change in work style, work from home, good and bad. We are seeing both of that. We're seeing the good aspects of it, but we're also seeing some negative aspects of it. Work from home also means that employers now do not have a need for large infrastructure So they are making savings, but what does that do to the infrastructure industry itself? What does it do, for example, to the maintenance services? There were big industries which were running, which was people maintaining offices, cleaning off. We are talking about people who are otherwise unskilled. Cleaning offices and so on and so forth. You come into an office which smells nice, looks nice, it has flowers on the table, everything is clean, but the person doing that work is not a, within quotes, highly educated university degree person. It is somebody who is like the help that you have in your house, but they are doing a job now. Maybe they wear a uniform. You have in India, for example, in the cities, you have what is called urban clap, which I'm sure many of you have used. Carpenters, plumbers, various people like that, handymen, who come and do the work. Loss of office space means that all of them are going to be out of work, because it's not to say, redeploy where? In your house? Doesn't work like that. Similarly, new employer-employee equations. We used to have to sign when you came to work. One of the things was security of data and security of the work that you're doing. So when you came into the office, there were various checks and balances. In some places you could bring in a phone. In some places you could not bring in a phone with a camera. In other places you could not bring in any data input or data storage devices and whatnot. Many of you are familiar with that. Today, that individual is sitting in his own house. So now when that person is working on your data, who else is seeing that data? What is the security of that data? If you have a NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, how valid is that non-disclosure agreement? Number 4 is people's hopes and aspirations and dreams and so on, they still remain the same. People still want their children to go to good schools. They still want their children to go have a good tertiary education. They still want to have good health, so therefore access to health care. They still have aspirations. They still want to go out to a restaurant maybe a couple of times a month, if not more. They still want to go to the movies. They still want to have a holiday once in a while. They still want to own their own homes and so on and so on. But the opportunities are, on the one hand, they will reduce. On the other hand, the kind of opportunity will change. What does all this mean? And all the time here, we are not talking technology alone. We are talking technology plus people, which is the reality. But my submission to you is that this reality is not mentioned in the narrative whenever somebody talks technology. So I want to tell you to do one thing, that going forward, anytime anyone wants to come and talk to you about technology, think about the impact on people. Who are those people? You are those people. You are those people. I am those people to some extent, but not to that extent, because I am beyond that at my age and what I am doing in my life, but not you. So therefore, ask the people, this technology is fine, but how does it affect the individual people? Interesting thing is that this corona thing that we are going through, I keep calling this corona one of the biggest blessings that we have, because this corona gave us a window into the future. It gave us a snapshot. My question is, but did we learn? Now going forward, let's see what I believe that you should do, which is focus. Focus is the art of ignoring fluff. Focus is to consciously choose to, within quotes, focus or pay attention to one thing at the cost of something else. Anyone who wants to do, multitasking, for example, is one of the biggest fallacies of this world. Multitasking is the finest way of ensuring that your efficiency drops many levels. The most efficient way to do something is to do tasks serially, not multitasking, but to do tasks serially or parallelly, but not multitasking. So at a time, you are focusing only on one task. Complete focus on one task, not trying to do 10 different things at the same time. Now, that is the first thing that I want to say to you is focus. Now, what kind of focus? I want to start with that with the red box at the bottom of my slide. What kind of work do you think you will be doing? You're joining the MBA program now. At the end of 2 years of PGDM, what kind of work do you think you will really be doing? Think about that and then think and say, in the presence of technology and the kind of technology changes that are coming up, will you even have that work? The work that you anticipate to be doing, will it be there? Now, who will be safe in this whole thing? Number one, people who focus on constant self-development. Constant self-development doesn't end. Every single day, you are only as good as your last transaction. Number two, people who focus on value addition. Not doing the same thing the same way over and over again. Value addition. Number three, and this is a very important one, people whose skills cannot be automated. For example, people in a business like mine, which is advising. I advise, I work with promoters, I work with business management boards, I work with the top brass of the Indian Police Service, with the IPS, and so on and so forth. The people whose mind is what people want to access. But you have to develop your mind to a point where somebody actually wants to listen to you and pay for that. Your college is not paying me for this. I have not asked them also. But my point is, and I don't want it. My point is that, but that's not how I run my business. So people whose skills cannot be automated, and for that you have to anticipate change and be ready for it before it comes. So ask yourself if you are in that space. Now, if you think you are there, then let me ask you this question. In the last 1 year, how many books did you read? Remember, I'm not even asking you how many books related to your profession, technical books. No, I don't care. Any book. How many books did you read in the last 1 year? And if you read less than 12 books, in my scheme of things, you have failed. Anyone who's not reading at least one book per month is already way behind in terms of competition. Minimum one book per month, maybe more. Then, not just mindless reading. What lessons did you learn from those books? So, for example, if you say that you read a storybook, right? Any kind of storybook. My question is, what lesson did you learn from that? Right? If you read, for example, J.R.R. Tolkien, the Lord of the Rings, so the trilogy. If you haven't read it, I think that's something I would strongly recommend. Read the Lord of the Rings, the trilogy by J.R.R. Tolkien. One of the finest books that I've read it 3 times, and it's a beautiful book to understand modern politics today. What lessons did you learn? Number 2, did you implement those lessons? And if you implemented those lessons, did you evaluate yourself? And how? Parallel question, on a regular basis, do you evaluate yourself? And by that I don't mean look in the mirror and say, oh wow, fantastic, God's creation, how beautifully He created me. No, I'm talking about your professional evaluation. I don't know if you would be interested to know this, but I have a 360-degree appraisal of myself done every 5 years. Now, I have been on my own, self-employed from 1994 onwards. If I do not do a 360, nobody is asking me any questions. The 360 that I do has no monetary value as such. But I do that, and I do that every 5 years. And believe me, that is a competitive advantage. Knowledge is a competitive advantage. Self-assessment is a competitive advantage. And that's why my thought I want to leave with you is allergy to critical feedback is allergy to survival. These are all my quotes, which I've got 4 books of quotes. If you go on Amazon, you can find them. I hope you will read some of them. I hope you will find them to be interesting. Now, Perspective for today is, what do you need to learn? You're joining a course, you're joining the PGDM course, but I want to ask you, do you have a personal learning goal for yourself? Don't say I'm joining because in order to get an MBA degree. No, that's rubbish. What is your personal learning goal from this course? Because the reality is, nobody can teach you anything. Nobody can teach anybody anything. I have been a teacher now for 35 years, and I'm telling you from my personal experience, I have not taught anyone anything. People learn whatever they want to learn. What the teachers do and what the best of us can do is to present to you a smorgasbord, a buffet, a menu of things that might be useful for you to learn. But believe me, you are the only one who picks what you think will be beneficial for you, and you are not going to pick the right thing unless you have answered the question for yourself to say, what do I want to learn? So be very clear about that. Make sure that you don't go in with your eyes shut. What do I want to learn? And that's why my second quote, which I want to leave with you for the rest of your life, which is, excuses don't change reality. This is one of the when I'm interviewing people, I have a book on interviewing called Hiring Winners. When I'm interviewing people, I listen to the conversation. When they are talking to me, I'm not just listening to their words, I'm also listening to the tone behind the words. And one of the things I look for specifically is if they are making excuses. If they are giving me excuses. For example, I asked you a question, how many books did you read in the last 12 months? And did you read at least 12 books? I'm sure there'll be some of you who will say, yes, we read 12 books. Some of you may have read more. Others might say, no, we did not read 12 books. That's it. But there will be others who will say, oh, but you know, sir, the reason I did not read 12 books is this happened, that happened. Now that is a red flag in my mind, because here is a person making excuses. Now think about this. If you can give me all the best excuses in the world why you did not read 12 books, will that be equal to reading 12 books? Not on your life. You know that. Loss doesn't change to gain just because you have an excuse. So forget about excuses. Excuses do not change reality. I want you to do this before you join your college, which is to do a SWOT analysis for yourself. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threat. This is what they will probably teach you also in the MBA course, but you don't need to wait for that. Do your own SWOT analysis. What do you see as your strengths? Take people's feedback. Ask them also to tell you. What do you see as your weaknesses? Introspect for that. What do you see as threats for you if you do not focus on leveraging your strengths and on getting over your weaknesses? And number 4 is, what opportunities do you think will present themselves to you if you do this? Which is, if you leverage your strengths and if you overcome your weaknesses. Do the SWOT analysis for yourself. I have put a quote there from Harry. Michael Harry is the inventor or the author of Six Sigma quality. And he made this wonderful statement. He said, if you want to see what people value, see what they measure. My question to you is, do you measure your learning? If you have not done it till now, today is the day you start. Write down the date today. 27th of August 2020 is when you are going to start writing and recording and measuring your learning on a day-to-day basis. Now, for that, I want to give you some advice, and that is, create solutions. Make this a motto in your life. Say, create solutions. Don't add to the problem, right? What do I mean by that? I mean, forget placement. I'm sure many of you have joined the college because the college has a good record of placement. Let me ask you a question. What is one of the biggest problems we have in our country, in India? The same problem to various degrees is in many countries, but in India especially, what is it? It is unemployment, right? Now tell me, are you going to be adding to that or solving it? If we add another 144 educated, unemployed people looking for jobs, are you adding to the problem or are you creating a solution? That is the point I'm saying. So I want you to say that we don't want the placement cell. I'm not going to put my name up for placement. What am I going to do instead? I'm going to start a business. So forget placement, think entrepreneurship. You are in a business school to learn how to start and run a business. If you are not there for that reason, I suggest you go do something else. Don't waste your time, don't waste their time. Because if you have joined there just to be another paper pusher, to get a job in some multinational company or something, to make a salary, that is a complete waste of your time. Don't do that. Your life is not worth wasting. Make good use of your life. Forget placement, forget jobs, start businesses. Start thinking of that from right now. What business can I do? And when I go to the MBA college, I'm going to learn how to do business. And then in that context, ask yourself, what is the delta? What is the gap between where I am now and where I need to be? Now that is what I mean by focus. Think about this. The reality about choice is that we are free to choose, but no choice is free. Every choice has a price tag, and that's why I'm asking you this question. I'm saying, what is the price of your dream? You know, the beautiful thing about dreams is dreams want to be caught. The dream would like to be caught. And who catches the dream? The one who's willing to pay the price. In 1985, I decided to get myself an MBA. And I applied to IIM Ahmedabad, and I got in there. I was in a full-time job in the plantation industry in Tamil Nadu. So I couldn't do the 2-year PGDM, so I did an executive MBA. Now, the funny thing was that I got married in March in 1985. The program started in April. 1 month after I got married, I went off to Ahmedabad. My wife went off to stay with her parents. And I didn't see her until the end of the course. I didn't have money to pay for the fee, so I borrowed money from my company, which didn't want to sponsor me. But they agreed to lend me the money. I said, no problem. This is for me. I'm not going to blame my organization. I'm not going to say what kind of people they won't even sponsor learning. No, it is my issue. I borrowed the money. I went there. I spent that time. I got myself an executive MBA. My choice. It had a price tag. I paid the price, and now I have, not now, from 85 onwards, I have an executive MBA, an MEP from IIM Ahmedabad. Do you think it makes a difference to my consulting practice? Of course. And that's why I say to you, the window of opportunity. That's incidentally a view from my window as in the morning when I sit at my desk. The window of opportunity. People think it opens in their lives. Let me let you into a secret. The window of opportunity doesn't open. It waits for you to go and open it. Who can open it? The one who anticipates it. The one who prepares for it. Because even if the window opens, if you have not prepared for it, you can't use it. I always give this example. Hotmail. Free internet-based email. Today this is standard. Everything is free. But when Hotmail was started, Bhatia started it and sold it to Microsoft for 400 million. At that time, the opportunity for free internet-based email was available to whom? To everybody. But who took advantage of that? One man. Now ask yourself, what are the opportunities which are floating in the air? Because there will be people who will find them. And there will be other people who will stand and watch. It's your choice which one you want to be. So to achieve your dream, you must start working right now. This is my model for success, is between on a continuum with ambivalence on one side and passion on the other. The person who is focused on excellence, their life is skewed towards passion. People will try to tell you and talk to you about work-life balance and this and that. Believe me, there is no such thing. There is no such thing. If you love your work, if you want to be number one in it, if you want to excel in it, then you have to give that more time than everything else. And for that, you have to love it. And if that is not the case, then my suggestion is find some other work. Because why are you spending your life doing something that you do not love? Now for that, you need vision. Where do you want to go? A strategy. How will you get there? Risk-taking ability, the willingness to learn continuously, and the humility to seek feedback. I always quote this wonderful quote by Seneca, who was one of the senators at the time of Julius Caesar in Rome. He says, success is where opportunity meets preparedness. Success is where opportunity meets preparedness. Many times people say, I never had the opportunity. That's not true. That is not true. Everybody has opportunity. Many people are not prepared for that. So the opportunity just goes by. Let me tell you a little story. It was 1994, and I used to live in Delhi at the time, and I was driving back from a dinner party. I used to live in Noida, and the dinner party was in Delhi. So I was in South Delhi, and I was driving back to Noida. Driving back from South Delhi to Noida, I was driving down Akbar Road. And this was very late at night. This was like something like now, which is now it's about 12:45 a.m. It must have been something like that, close to 1 o'clock in the night. I saw a bull standing in the middle of the road. Now you might say, well, what's so strange about that? There's lots of, especially in UP and Delhi and that area, lots of cattle on the road. I said, no, this is strange for two reasons. Firstly, there are cattle in other places, in Noida and so on and so on, but in most of Lutyens Delhi, you don't find them in the road. Number two is, even if they're there, they will be lying down on the big roundabouts, which are all grass. They have lawns on them. So the cattle, they generally, the cows and bulls and so on, they are lying down on the grass. But this was one single bull, and he was standing in the middle of the road. Just standing rock still. He just was there. It was so strange that I slowed down the car, almost brought it to a stop to see why that was the case. And what did I see? I saw that it had a nose ring, and the rope from the nose ring, this bull had stepped on it with its hind leg. So now when it wanted to move forward, it puts its foreleg forward and moves, the rope pulls, and the bull stops. Now that was one of the most amazing life lessons that I ever learned. And that's why my question to you is, if you want to succeed, who's stopping you? And I'm telling you the story to tell you who is the only one who can stop you. And that is yourself. The case of this bull, he had stepped on the rope. Every time he wanted to move forward, the rope pulled and he stopped. Who was stopping him? Himself. Now, what do you think that bull needed to do? The bull needed to walk backwards one step. Not backward for the rest of his life. One step. So that the rope is released and then he moves forward. That is sometimes what we need to do in life. We need to stop, we need to reflect, maybe we need to redo a bit to go forward. But the bull being the bull, I don't know how long he stood there. I mean, I wasn't getting out in the night, in 1 o'clock in the night to release him. So I went home. But I went home with a very, very important life lesson. So what must you do? Measure your results, your own results. I told you about my 360. Do it for yourself. Why? Because only what you measure, you can guarantee. Michael Harris quote, I repeat for you. If you want to see what somebody values, see what they measure. So let me teach you some tools to succeed. Do you want to learn them? Right. First tool. We all want to get things. We want to get rewards, we want to get name and fame and money and friends and influence and power and authority and so on, happiness. We want to get many things. In order to get, we need to do. We need to do. You want to get influence, you need to communicate. You want to get friends, you want to get power, you have to be able to take a stand. Do. Reading, writing, communicating, contributing, speaking, you name it. To get something, we have to do something. And guess what? What does that depend on? That depends on who you are. Your own beliefs, your own values, your own morals, your own attitudes. Who are you? What are your beliefs? What are your beliefs? What are your values? For example, let me give you an example. If I ask you what do you want to get, you might say, I want to get a wonderful team. I want to build a beautiful self-propelled, a self-responsible team, right? So for that, what do you need to do? You need to delegate authority to people. You cannot have a powerful team if you are not willing to delegate authority. But to be able to delegate authority, you know where it starts? It starts with your belief about people. Are people trustworthy? Can I trust people? What do I feel about myself? Do I feel threatened when I see competence? If I see a young person, or young or old, if I see somebody as part of my team who is highly competent, do I see that person as an enormous resource, or do I see that person as a potential threat? This belief of mine will drive my behavior regarding delegation, which will get me or not get me a wonderful team. That is what I mean by who I am decides what I do, which decides what I get. So remember the law. The law is the belief drives the attitude, which drives the behavior. Success is a product of the alignment of these three things. The right beliefs, from which come the right attitudes, which produce the right behavior. Right? So what must you do? Tool number 2 is create a learning journal. Create a learning journal. In that journal, every day, I want you to write down. So do that on a daily basis. If you do it in the morning, say what happened yesterday. If you do it in the night, say what happened today. You don't have to write a whole book. Write some things. What happened? What did I learn? And what do I intend to do about it? Now, you might say, well, this is a bit tedious and so on. How will it help me? Let me tell you how it helped me. In 2002, before the slump came, I looked at, by my scanning of the environment, especially the economic environment, I knew that something had to bust somewhere, because the way stocks were, the way industry was, it looked like more fantasy than real. Because there was this huge, within quotes, positive feeling, but positive feeling has to be based on some foundation, and there wasn't any foundation. And then, sure enough, the subprime crisis happened in the United States in terms of lending, and the whole market fell out, the bottom fell out of the market, of the housing market. And not only did it put, thousands of people became homeless, but of course the whole economic thing collapsed. But before that, I'm not claiming that I foresaw all of that in detail. I didn't. But I knew that something was wrong and something would break. And then my thought to myself was that I'm in a high value service providing business, which is management consulting, leadership development, team building, and things like that, which is a high value service. Now, what normally happens when there is a slump in business? What normally happens is people look at cost cutting. And the number one cost that people cut is that of training. It's a very stupid thing to do, because ideally speaking, when the business pressure is low, people have free time, you should actually put in a lot of training. That's a good time to do that, because you are not taking people off the street when they would otherwise have been making money selling your product or service. Right now there is no market, they can't sell, they are idle. Put them to work in learning. But this is not how most people think. So, training managers and HR managers like to show their bosses that they're doing a good job. So they say, we're cutting the training budget. Now, what happens to somebody like me, whose revenue is based on somebody else's training budget? It means I take a hit. So I thought to myself, well, given a company, which part of that company will not be affected by any economic slump? Is it the employees? Is it the middle management? Is it the top management? Is it the promoters? Who are they? And the answer I gave myself was, it is the promoters and their families. So I said, what should I write about business families? In other words, family-owned businesses. So I looked at and I took from my learning journals over the years. I worked for 10 years for one of the largest family businesses in India, the Murugappa Group. I was and am very close friends with many of the family members. The patriarch of the family, Mr. A.M.M. Arunachalam, was a very dear friend of mine. And he used to tell me stories about how the whole family, how they started in Burma and how they came to India and all the stuff that happened. Amazing learning for me. I had the good sense to write it all down. So in 2002, I sat down and I did research and I worked for 2 years. 2004, I published my book, The Business of Family Business. It's there on Amazon, go read it. How did that happen? Because I maintained a learning journal. And that is the tool that I'm giving you and I'm asking you to do for yourself if you like. Because what I get depends on what I do, and what I do depends on who I am. Number 3, life is math. Life is an equation. 2 plus 2 equals 4. But interesting part of this equation is that only one part of the equation is in our control. The second part is given to us. So if you take 2 plus 2, only one of those 2 is mine. The second part is given to me. It's not in my control. But the two together, the 2 parts of the equation together, give us the result. So now I've got 2 and I want the result 8. What must I do? The other 2 is not in my control. I will get only that 2. But I want 8. What must I do? I have to up my game from 2 to 4, right? Or 6. So if I up my game to 6, 6 plus 2 is 8. Because 2 plus 2 is only 4. So if you want a different result, we can still get it, even though we have only one part of the equation in our control. We can get that different result if we up our game. And that is my submission to you. Think about that and say, what is it that I need to do to up my game, where I can get the result I want, even though in life I will never have complete control over all resources, all people, all situations. I will have only control over one part. And you know who that part is? Look in the mirror. That is yourself. So it's yourself and it's somebody else. I have no control over this somebody else, but I have control over myself. What am I going to do to enhance and upgrade and strengthen myself in such a way that I still get the result that I want, even though the other person is not in my control? And that's why my submission to you is, never shortchange yourself. Never shortchange yourself. Demand the best from yourself. Remember, I'm sitting here in America at 1 o'clock in the morning talking to you. I don't need to do that. I do not need to do that. Why am I doing it? Because of my commitment to myself to say that I will do whatever is in my control. I will not allow what is not in my control to prevent me from doing what is in my control. And that's my last slide and my gift to you. I will not allow what is not in my control to prevent me from doing what is in my control. Why am I sitting here talking to you? Because you are the most valuable asset of my nation. You are the next generation. And if it means that somebody like myself, I have to lose some sleep in order to have the opportunity to offer you something. I don't know that I can do good for you or not. That's up to you to decide. But I can offer you something. I can offer you the essence of my learning. I can offer you the essence of my life experience. And if that means I have to lose some sleep over that, I'm willing to do that because I want to demand the best from myself. And that is why I'm saying to you, demand the best for yourself. Don't shortchange yourself. I wish you all absolutely the best in your life. I wish all of you to make a difference to somebody somewhere. I want to end with a final quote. And that quote is, differentiate. Differentiate. What is different? Why differentiation? Because differentiation creates brand. Brand inspires loyalty. Loyalty enables influence. And success is directly proportionate to influence. Thank you very much. And I hope one day to be able to see you face to face somewhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I must say that this has been one of the best sessions we could